Hey everyone, it's Jason Polak here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about automation in art. So, this is a hot topic now because actually I recently read that Adobe has started some new AI thing in their software. I don't know exactly what it is. It's some kind of thing which will suggest a lot of edits for you and do a lot of initial groundwork. And, everyone's talking about AI, and as you know, I hate AI. But I'm going to talk about automation in art, and people are wondering, well, we use autofocus in photography, so isn't autofocus and automation? What's the difference between autofocus and AI? So, to clarify this issue, I'm going to introduce or talk to you about 3 rules that I use to decide whether I should use an automation in art, automation in my photography. When do I use automations? When should you use automations? This is just my personal philosophy, but of course you don't have to follow it, but just maybe it'll give you some ideas for your own philosophy and to at least understand the issue of artificial intelligence. So, what are these 3 rules? Rule number 1, does it push you strongly in one direction or another? So this is just very simple. If you have like a slider in a photo editing program, and it basically decides for you which parts of your photo should be brightened, which should be darkened based on some kind of AI database or something, then it's strongly suggesting something for you to do. If an automation strongly suggests one particular complex path or another, like a complete edit or like a rough cut of a video or something like that, then I don't use it. I don't think it's a good idea to use it because it's too strong of an influence from other sources. An important part of creativity is that you should have the opportunity to be alone with your own thoughts and decide for yourself. Of course, we all get influenced by other people's art, and that's a normal thing. But there should be a time when you can just sit in front of your computer and decide for yourself what you should do and not be too influenced. So if an automation strongly influences what you should do or gives you too much of a strong suggestion, then I don't use it. That's rule number 1. What's rule number 2? Can you understand, at least in theory, exactly what will happen after the automation without seeing the result first? Let's take autofocus. Autofocus is an automation. Actually, for a while, I used to shoot birds without autofocus, but autofocus is an automation. So it decides for you where to focus, where you place the focus point. But with autofocus, I know what's going to happen before the camera focuses. And in theory, if I had superhuman reflexes, I could focus the camera myself. And often I can focus the camera myself, and I can get the exact same result using autofocus and manual focus a lot of the time. Even before the camera focuses, I know what it's going to focus on because I'm telling it what to focus on. Even if the camera has some human face recognition, I could still theoretically achieve the result even without using autofocus. Autofocus just helps me do it faster. That's not true with generative AI. If you type something in a prompt in AI, it will give you an image based on its database of millions of images, and you don't know what's going to come out of there. So that's another rule I use. I have to know what's going to happen before, and the automation is just there to save time. And that's not true of most of AI, and that's another reason why I don't use AI. But what's rule number 3? Does it go beyond what can be done with traditional photography? Okay, so if an automation just saves you time, then I'm not really against using it if you can accomplish it using traditional methods, like algorithms that are easy to code by one person or a small group of people. For example, Capture One Pro, a popular raw editing software. That software uses some kind of machine learning subject recognition. If you use that in your photography, I still think that basically counts as photography. You're just using something that you could have done by yourself. But on the other hand, AI noise reduction, that's something I don't use because you can't accomplish what AI noise reduction does if you only had a little bit more time. And it has to use its huge database of millions of images, context aware, and it denoises your images in a certain way that goes beyond traditional denoising. What it does is actually do, on a fine pixel level at least, a little bit of interpolation based on its database. So it's more like a redrawing program that almost redraws your image based on its database of millions of images. So AI noise reduction fails this test. It can't be done with traditional software. So that's a third criteria I use. Of course, These are not the full rules that I personally use, but they're three basic rules that I think are useful for distinguishing automations that are helpful in the creative process from automations that can actually destroy the creative process. But I just thought that this video might help some people sort of start to think about the difference between different kinds of automations, because on the surface, philosophically, it's hard to distinguish what is the difference between autofocus and maybe AI noise reduction, because both are basically kind of automated things. So these are some questions you can ask to sort of figure out what are the differences between these different things. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next time.